welcome to the first ever podcast by me, Tanan. I don't have a name of this podcast yet, but I want to talk about Thai perspective of Canada because I've been living here for 12 years now, and I have lots of friends who been living here for a long time. And I want to share with the world and all the Thai people who want to come to Canada to really understand what it's really like to live here. And now, today, I'm joined by two guests, my dear friends, Napon and Mina. So, would you like to introduce yourself? Napon, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Stefan. Yeah. As you were describing just now, I was counting my number of years I've been living here, and I think I've been here for 14 years already. I came here for high school in grade 9, and I'm currently working as a software developer.
Cool.
Hi everyone, my name is Mina. I am an Asian Canadian, or as I like to say, Canadian.
Canadian.
I don't know if that's a real term, but I like to use it. But I am a Thai Canadian, more specifically. My family, or my parents are from Bangkok, Thailand, and they actually immigrated here before I was born. So I was born here in Canada, specifically on the island of Vancouver Island, so Victoria, BC, and then I moved to Vancouver, where I'm currently living now. Absolutely love it here, and yeah, so I would say that's my introduction.
Cool. So I think we have a very good variety here. So you came here since high school, you said, right? And you were born here, basically from Thai family. So me myself, I came here after I graduated from a university in Thailand. So I have my bachelor from Thailand. I worked in Thailand for a year, and then I came here to get another bachelor degree. So I think we have a pretty diverse perspective on like what it's like to live in Canada. So the title of today's podcast is that is life in Canada really better than life in Thailand? And I know that a lot of Thai people really want to move abroad because they feel like, oh, Thailand, life in Thailand sucks, there's no future, economy is bad, blah, blah, blah. But I want to really discuss with you all today, like if it's really better. So let's jump to our first question. What is good about living in Canada?
I just the first thing that pops into my mind is like the environment here. Like the air is very fresh. There's lots of outdoor activities. I know when I go back to Thailand, as much as I love it, I feel like there's a lot of pollution. Um, and it sometimes feels a bit hard to breathe. And so I think that is one of the things that I really love about being in Canada.
So like the nature,
Yeah.
pollution, or like free of pollution, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Pollution is definitely a big factor,
Yeah.
like that enhanced quality of life here, right?
And like water quality, I mean, here we can drink tap water. I remember the first time I went to Thailand and I was about to drink water from the tap water, and everyone's like, no, don't do that, that's not safe. And everyone uses bottled water, right? So those are some cultural differences that I can see.
Yeah. I think I agree with all those points, and they're important to me as well. And I think another reason for being in Canada is you get access to a lot of opportunities, especially for like the field that I'm in tech. Like, you get more opportunities like when you're here for university. There will be like career fairs that you can attend, and there will be companies like Google, Microsoft that will be at the career fair where you can interact with their recruiters and potentially get an interview offer. So it really gives you a lot of options. Like if you want to try it for an internship in the States, yeah, being here just gives you like all that options.
I don't know, I don't want to jump the gun, but I graduated from Thailand. It took me about 3 months to find a job. And you were right, there was no career fair. I got a job mainly because I know like my senior people that work in the company and they kind of recommend me there. So in Thailand, like what you call like a networking is very important to get a job. But yeah, there are not a lot of like these career fair, and I don't know why. Like, do you have any?
As a career specialist, this makes me really happy to hear. I have definitely been involved in like organizing some of those and attending some of those. So it's nice to hear that you have enjoyed those and found those useful. But yeah, I do see a difference in that type of culture where over here, I guess there's a lot more well, I can't really say because I haven't lived in Thailand, but there's a lot of emphasis on like student services, especially those career service. I don't know if that is the case in Thailand. It sounds like maybe not. And I think one thing that is different though is like I think it's very common in Thai culture to chai sen, right? To
Yeah.
use your networking and connections to get opportunities. And that's still the case actually over in Canada, especially to land your first job. It does matter, but it doesn't seem as heavily emphasized um, as in Thailand. Like it doesn't seem quite as I'm not sure the
I,
word.
I have something to say about this. I think like Titan or like networking in Canada is more like, yes, oftentimes you get the job because someone refer you to the company, but those people need to make sure that like you are competent for the job as well, right? So you need to have like a degree of competency before you can get a job.
Yeah.
You can't just like, oh, I know that person and that's why I got to work there. But in Thailand, like I feel like there's a lot of like just you get the job just because you know the person. Like doesn't matter if you know how to do the job or not. You just like, oh, I'm either like his brother of the owner, son-in-law, whatever, and they just, oh, you got the job.
Yeah.
Or like just by your last name or whatnot, right? So I feel like that's the big difference. I don't see that here, but I agree. Networking, like referral and all that, is still a big part
That's
of
a
the
very
career
good
here.
point. Here, even if you get a referral, that's not enough to land you the job. You still have to interview. You still have to do the technical assessment to make sure you're competent, depending on the field. So that's a great point.
Actually, do you think it's about the type of company as well? Like you mentioned, you notice like this type of Kaizen like with Thai companies, and you don't see it as much here. Like, is it because the companies there are not as well regulated, or like maybe like the companies here are more established, and so you don't really see that type of behavior happening?
I don't think it's the type of the company. I think it's the culture in general. Like you work for Amazon, right? It's a pretty big company. Do you see any like Kaizen to get the job at all?
So some instances of that would be like through what you guys already mentioned, like the referral system. And sometimes there are ways to rig it. Like you could have, like let's say the manager wants someone in, he might be the one to interview the person for the position, right? So there's some degree of influence over the hiring decision of that candidate. But at the same time, there will also be other people involved in the hiring loop. So it's not entirely just the manager's input, but also other engineers on the team. So I guess, yeah, maybe not like fully rigged, but there's definitely some.
That's what I was trying to describe before. Is like it still exists here, but not quite to the same degree or level as in Thailand.
I think maybe because like here, like the company are bigger. If you want to work in big company, right? So it's just harder to use your own influence to hire someone. But in Thailand, I feel like maybe a lot of the company are smaller as well, especially with family-owned business, right? That's why it's easier to use your personal power to like pull people in. Another thing that I see that very like obvious in Thailand, like they really emphasize on like พรรคพวกอะ It's like if you graduate from ธรรมศาสตร์ or Chula, Mahidol, it's like, oh yeah, we want to hire people that graduated from the same university, and it become like its own tribe of like that people that graduate from this university, they all work in that company, and then like and go back to your point, like yeah, when you have more and more of your own people, it's easier to influence the decision about who's gonna get hired, right? So I see that more prevalent in Thailand, but I don't know, you guys see it here as well, or you feel like it's more in Thailand?
I haven't personally experienced it, but I know of like someone once told me that they were interning at this company, and then they noticed that all of their coworkers were previously at another company, but like slowly they kept referring their friends over from the previous
Bring
company.
everyone.
Yeah, and now they have like maybe like 20 or 30 people
So
who
it's
came
happening
from that
here as
previous
well.
company. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just maybe it's human nature. Like you can see it everywhere.
Okay, so I guess there's a difference between like work opportunities and how to go about them, and the degree of like connections and how important that is. I think one other thing I have to say that I love about living in Canada is just how multicultural it is. I love going to work and having colleagues that are from so many different countries, or you know, just even observing people of different cultures, helping each other out at the grocery store, or while they're walking down the street, and it's really refreshing and it's nice. It's a very hopeful feeling to see people from different cultures and perspectives be able to coexist and get along and be friends with each other. Um, and it's also refreshing to hear about different perspectives and different cultures. We also get to expand our own minds by them. And of course, with this multicultural aspect, we get lots of fantastic food from so many different places. So that's something I definitely enjoy.
I wanna touch on that point too because I recently just came back from Thailand, right? I would say Bangkok now is pretty like multicultural as well.
Oh yeah,
You can see people from all over the world.
Mhm.
You can pretty much eat any kind of food, right?
Yeah.
Indian, Japanese, Korean, whatever you want.
Mhm.
Uh, so I don't know if like that's uniquely Canada. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you can have this kind of lifestyle in Thailand, in Bangkok as well. You can like always hang out with expats, always have like international friends.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Do you think like
Good point.
Yeah, I think food. Yeah, it's might be similar. One thing that Canada offers, I think, especially Vancouver, it just feels like there are more things to do, like activity wise. Like
I disagree?
really? Okay, so like
go on,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
go
So
on.
like here, you can go hiking. There's so many places to hike. Where do you go hiking in Thailand? I don't really.
Well, you
know
can
about-
because you have to drive like 10 hours. Just kidding.
And like
But you cannot not
yeah,
around Bangkok. I
And
mean.
like even if you drive, like the weather will probably not be as good as like hiking in
Okay,
Vancouver in the
when-
summer.
I mean, weather, I agree. Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Oh, this is shocking to me because I definitely thought that Thailand has way more things to do because Vancouver also is known to be quite like a sleepy city. We have like zero nightlife and like the things that we can do, like the hiking, the outdoor activities, exist for such a short period of time during the summer. Like when you're talking about better weather for the hikes in Thailand, I'm thinking like it's very nice in Vancouver for such a short time. Most of the time it's raining here.
Yeah, I think the time window is definitely limited. But at the same time, because we have 4 seasons, it gives us like it opens up
Range.
to more activities like in the winter, which will be different from like activities you do in the summer. And like I'm just thinking of all the summer activities like barbecuing. Like when was the last time I barbecued in Thailand?
That is
yeah.
a super
Yeah.
Canadian activity.
Yeah.
I
And-
don't think it's more like the culture thing in Thailand. Like we don't have the culture of barbecue. We just go out and eat in a restaurant,
Or
right?
street
I think the weather just doesn't offer that as well. Like you can't see yourself like barbecuing when it's like
It's too
40
hot,
degrees.
yeah.
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 And yeah, like winter sports like snowboarding, skiing, those are always fun.
But in Thailand, you can like hang out on the beach like all year round, even in the winter time. So
Scuba diving, snorkeling,
Yeah.
Actually, that's true as
I
well.
don't know,
yeah.
man. I feel like there are more things to do in Thailand.
Maybe I'm just not like a beach person. Like
I
yeah.
think that's the number one comment I get from people who are like coming here is that it tends to be a lot sleepier than other places. We like no nightlife, and a lot of people like to like stay at home and hang out with friends in their own home. Whereas in other places, like in Thailand, I think you're always like in Bangkok, you're always going out. You're going out to a restaurant. You're going out to a party. You're going out to the movie theater. You're going out to do
Shopping
something.
malls.
Shopping is like a super huge activity there. So yeah, kind of. I think that's a big cultural difference too.
Okay, so I think to sum it up, like depends what you like. If you like outdoor or like kind of 4 season kind of activities, of course Canada has more choices for you. But if you really want like summer sports or you just want more like human-made activities, nightlife, whatnot, maybe Thailand has more options, right? That's a great point. Yeah, let's switch gear on like what's good about living in Thailand. We talk a lot about like what's good about living in Canada. How about like on the other side? Like from now, like we're living here, looking back, like what are the good things about living in Thailand?
Man, this is a hard one because I came here when I was 13 years old. So my only personal experience of Thailand was like when I was really young and like growing up there. But one thing I always enjoyed was like how accessible food was. Back in Thailand, like you can walk out of your house and like along the street there will be something you can buy
And very
eat.
affordable. as
and
well.
very affordable.
That was the first thing that came to mind for
Yeah.
me. Like very like relatively good food that's very cheap, whereas over here I think it tends to be a bit more expensive. And like sometimes the only thing nearby you is like Starbucks or McDonald's, and that's not necessarily very healthy, right?
Yeah, and I remember like one of the culture shocks I have when I landed in Vancouver was how different the 7-Elevens here are compared to the ones in Thailand.
7-Eleven Tabs is the best.
Yeah, I just walked into the 7-Eleven here and it's just so empty and lonely in there. It's just so different. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like other stuff as well, but if you guys have
I think
anything.
Mina touched on a good point, like the price, right? And a lot of foreigner, like I know a lot of Canadian friends that love going to Thailand, and one of the reasons is affordability, not just with food, but like with everything,
Yes.
like accommodation, transportation. And I feel like it's like a double-edged sword, right? Yeah, it's good, it's cheap, but like if you're actually living there and making a living there, like that's also detrimental because you can like stuck in that country because you don't have enough money to go out because like everything is cheap, but also you're not making a lot of money, right?
Yeah, I hear that. One thing, I don't know, because I haven't lived in Thailand, I only visited regularly. I mean, things that I love about Thailand always like my family. I love, of course, meeting up with my relatives, spending time with them. It's always a highlight. And Thai people in general, I find, are just really lovely people and also very funny. Like I think the Thai culture and Thai language like is really hilarious. And oftentimes people tell me about like I don't know if you know, but it's quite popular like Thai commercials.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really innovative and hilarious. And that's something I can always appreciate about like Thai culture is just the joy, how funny and fun-loving it is.
สบายสบาย
Yeah, very chill.
There are some like Thai dramas that I've watched, and they're so hilarious, and they're so smart, like so witty. Like the humor is very different than North American humor, and I feel like it's a little bit more clever in Thailand. And the language can also support it, but it's very hard to translate. Like I cannot translate those types of jokes.
I don't know if like the joke are clever. Sometimes I feel like Thai joke are silly. I don't know.
There's a range.
There's a range to it. I feel like Western like comedy are more like intelligence in a way. Like you need to really think like a few steps before you get the joke. But like you get a joke, be like, oh, ha 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 ha, you know what I mean? A Thai joke is like very simple but
Interesting. I guess both cultures have a range then, because I also see like what you're saying. Sometimes we do have intellectual jokes here, but then there are also some jokes that we have. I'm just like, this is embarrassing.
yeah.
Or maybe you're like very fluent in Thai, so you get the joke right away, and then for her it's like you're like, oh, fluent. It's the other way.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, your Thai is pretty good too, right? How good is your Thai? Let's say. Like,
That is such a I can't assess that, right? That wouldn't be an objective assessment.
if you go to Thailand, you talk to your cousin in Thailand. Like, do you feel like you are as fluent as them, or like it's like time that
I'm
you?
not a native speaker.
Okay.
But I can speak conversationally enough to get by.
I feel like my Thai is getting worse by the day. Like every time I go back to Thailand, my parents always comment like, "Oh, your Thai is getting worse. Your Thai is getting worse." Yeah.
Yeah.
The pros of Thailand. I want to hear more.
I think culture for sure. I totally agree. I think Thai culture is probably the most hospitality.
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah.
Like I went there like recently and like went staying in the hotel and like I've been to like restaurant in Vancouver or even like US or anywhere in the world. Like I think Thai people have the best hospitality. Like they really serve you from the heart. This is the culture that like we love to be nice to people. We love to see people having a good time. You know.
That's very true.
Yeah, you don't see it anywhere. It's something money cannot buy, and I think that's part of the reason why people like Thailand so much.
Yeah, and I think the service doesn't have to be like even like in like human to human interaction. Sometimes, for example, like I recently went back to Thailand in December, which was like a month ago, and they have, you know how like when you travel now you need to take the PCR test, and Thailand recently came out with like a test and go program where you need to quarantine in a hotel for one night, things like that. When I went back, this was all like offered as a package. So I think like anything, like any service or any thing you buy in Thailand, like they always think about
Everything.
like end-to-end solution.
It's so thorough.
Whereas I think in Western countries, you kind of have to figure things out on your
This
own.
is very true.
Like when I came back to Canada, for example, I had to figure out, okay, I might have to take the PCR test from like this company, maybe like find ways to satisfy the requirement on my own, rather than like just like having the solution all packaged up in one price. And I think Thailand is very good at doing this.
Similar, they're so good with like I guess like those vacation packages. Like you can buy like a vacation package and go. They will have the boat ready for you. I'm thinking about when I went to like one of the islands. They take the boat. They have all the lunch prepared for you. They have bottles of water. They have fruits for you. They take and this is not like a fancy. I'm not like spending too much money, but like they have everything covered and ready to go. So I appreciate that. One other thing I wanted to say that I love about Thailand is the massage culture.
Oh, yeah.
How could we forget? Eh? Like it's so affordable. Not only affordable, but like a very common practice just to get massaged regularly, and it's just good for your body. I really enjoy that.
I think it's more like the labor cost is cheap, and that's why massage is like prevalent in Thailand. You can get massage here too in Vancouver, and like if you have enough money, you can still go there every other days, right? You just pay $100 per hour instead of like 300 baht per hour. But yeah, and the tied to like the cheaper cost of living or like the cheaper labor cost. That's why you have a lot of these like services industry that like you can find cheaply everywhere.
But it's also like a part of Thai culture, right? Like Thai people actually like, created their own way of like and techniques to massage and like yeah, their spa game is just fantastic.
Spa game.
They're very good at it, and I think it ties into that hospitable culture.
And I think to build on that point, another thing I really like about Thailand is like we have a lot of like this uniqueness, like individualism in a way. Like when I went back to Thailand, I was so amazed by like a lot of these small like coffee shop, restaurant, or like massage place, or like gift shop, like all kind of like a very small, unique, like small businesses in a way. I feel like in the West or like Canada, for example, like there are so many like franchises, right? So it's like it's very systematic, like Starbucks everywhere, 7-Eleven and whatnot. So, but it take away that kind of like the spirit, the uniqueness of these smaller services, right? But Thailand is like it's amazing with like you can find like very unique, cool, cute shops.
I think one of the reasons for that might also be there are a lot more regulations in Canada, especially like I was looking at like if I want to start my own food truck in Vancouver, for example, I need to apply for a business license. Then I need to like if I have a food truck, then I need to make sure my food truck is like cleaned regularly. Like there's regulation around that. I have to get food safe certification. So there are all these barriers that prevent someone from just wanting to sell something on the street. Whereas in Thailand, you can just go and do it. Yeah, and it's very open for like entrepreneurship and business.
Entrepreneurship, I think that's the key word. Like there are lots of like this kind of entrepreneurship spirits in Thailand and people. And it comes with like good and bad, right? Like because there's regulation, so like anyone can pretty much do anything. But also it created like a bunch of chaotic scenario and scenes as well. That like I was very surprised when I was in Thailand. And maybe we can switch gear and talk about like what are the bad things about Thailand. And I can start like I was already touching on that. Like I feel like the chaotic part was very mind blowing. Like maybe I've been like living here for some time and I forgot how chaotic it could be, right? I went to Thailand and like let's say traffic. It's not even about traffic jam. Like nobody follow the freaking traffic rules. So people just like drive everywhere, and it was like, how can like they're not crashing in each other all the time? It's like motorcycle go like against the one way. It's like what the fuck is going on? And like you walk around, like you have to be the one mindful of the car. They're not stopping for you, and like I almost got hit by a car a few times.
Every time I go back, it amazes me how anyone gets anywhere. But it's so chaotic, but somehow it still works for the most part, which is it's mind-boggling. And crossing the street is so scary.
Actually, I was reading a funny article about like this crosswalk where there's always like an accident. Like someone will cross on the crosswalk, we use the crosswalk, and then like they get hit by a car. So then the way they solved that problem was they removed the crosswalk.
This is talk about in Thailand, right?
Yeah. It's so funny.
It's so sad. But yeah.
Actually, I wanted to ask. I'm not sure if this is like a cons or not because I don't know too much about it. But like healthcare in Thailand, like I've heard of 30 baht รักษาทุกโรค. Like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, it's good. It seems good because it's like the price is good, but I don't know if it's actually like.
Well, it only works at the public hospital, right? And
okay.
From my understanding, it's like the problem is like you're gonna wait in the line for a very long time, right? And the service might not be as good.
Okay. Okay. I,
And
I guess in that sense, it's similar to Vancouver then, right? Because we also have healthcare here.
Yeah.
We can walk into a hospital and get free medical service, but the wait time is really, really long. So I guess it's
That's a
comparable.
good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
comparable. But like I went to like PCR test. I did PCR test in like a private hospital in Thailand, and I have to say like private hospital in Thailand are like way nicer than like hospital here.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
it's like a hotel.
It is.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like hospitality again.
yeah.
Incredible.
There are even hospitals in Thailand that are like geared towards foreigners, right? Like it's
That's
all
right.
in English, and
Mhm.
people I know, some people like some of my coworkers during my internship, they flew to Thailand to get like medical services and then fly back, and it's even cheaper than getting the medical
Yes,
service here.
I've experienced and known people to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as well, excuse me, which actually makes me concerned for like Thai citizens. I don't know, maybe this is an outsider's perspective, but I worry that like a lot of wealthier foreign people are coming and taking away the healthcare services.
I don't
from-
think you need to
Oh,
worry.
really? Okay.
Because like those are like a different kind of people. They come and they like pay different price and all,
Yeah.
right? I think it's a good thing. It's good for the economy.
Okay, that's a great perspective to have.
In my opinion, I don't think there would be shortage of like hospital beds because
I also feel like a lot of like students want to become doctors in Thailand. Like
Yeah.
I think it's like their family. Like I don't know. Like I think like doctor is still like an occupation that people put a lot of priority in Thailand compared to here.
Very true.
yeah, actually we're supposed to be talking about the bad side of Thailand. Happy you diverged it.
Bring us off track now. Now I can only think about good things.
What else? Yeah, I mentioned the chaos, right? What else are bad in Thailand? I can mention also, yeah, like if you work, I used to work in Thailand, and if you are at the low level job, like entry level, it's you barely surviving, right? And I think that I would see it as a bad thing in Thailand, like the inequality, so to speak. Why here, like even if you work like minimum wage job, you can still have like a okay living here, right? So that's
Arguable. Lately with inflation, it's getting really hard, I think, especially in Vancouver for minimum wage workers. But yeah, that was one question that I was thinking about is like the social mobility. Like I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, like if for a poor person in Thailand, it would be really hard to change their situation, right? In Canada, it's still very hard, but we do still have social services. We do have some programs that do try to help, less well-off people to help them get into like a better situation, whether it's through like, I don't know, educational scholarships targeted towards those in needs or something like that. But I don't know if Thailand really has that kind of.
That's a really good point. Like, I'm just thinking, like, is it better to be a poor person in Canada or a poor person in Thailand? Like, because you're saying, like, okay, if you're born poor, like, how much opportunity you have to like to climb up the ladder, right? I still believe it. I think in Thailand, like, we can compare and contrast. At least, like, if you are poor, like, because like everything is affordable, and I don't know why, but unemployment rate in Thailand is really low. You can always find something to do. You can do like agriculture, go back to like the countryside. Like at least you're not gonna die, right? But here, like if you were poor, it might be harder. But like you have lots of support from the government in a way. I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Would
Actually,
it
you touched on it a little bit, like agriculture. I think one of the positives about Thailand having like relatively the same season all year round is it gives the opportunity of like having crops, like planting.
like abundance of food?
Yeah, like you can like have your own like kind of like almost like live financially independent if you're able to like if you have a plot of land and then you plant like vegetables and fruits and like maybe raise like chickens or something where you can have a source of food, and then for any excess you can like bring it to the market and sell it
That's
for
actually
income.
true. I remember seeing like a TED talk by this one Thai person, and he was living in Bangkok, and like he just couldn't afford anything, so he decided to just like go to the countryside, build his own house, like grow his own food, and then he was like able to sustain himself. Whereas, yeah, I don't know if you can really do that here in Canada. So this is like an interesting Just
Yeah, I think it would be definitely a lot harder to try to be like self-sustainable, especially with the weather, right? You need a lot more technology just to survive in Canada, right? And we are lucky in Vancouver because it's not that cold. But if you like step outside of Vancouver, then yeah, you can survive winter without like some sort of technology
Yeah.
or money, right?
So that's another pro and con for Thailand and Canada is in Thailand, I think it's always sunny, so you just need one set of wardrobe for sunny weather. Whereas in Canada, you need wardrobe for all like four
Yeah.
seasons, and you have like no storage space, and like you need those.
Even like you need like all-season wheels and you need winter tires.
Yes,
Like
you
you
need
need
so much stuff.
so many
to
different
just
sets of
save yourself, right?
items. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pros and cons for people who like to just have one set of summer clothes versus people who like to. There are certain people that like to dress like winter fashion or spring or seasonality too.
So that's kind of like the con of Thailand because you cannot really wear seasonal fashions. You can only have summer fashion all year round.
I guess so.
No, you'd be surprised. People wearing like a sweater and whatnot in the winter in Thailand, like 25 degrees, so cold. Put on like a carrying jacket.
Oh my goodness, I'm daring.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, let's switch gears. So I think we were touching on a little bit about bad side about Canada. So yeah, maybe to be fair, let's talk about like the bad side of living in Canada.
Okay.
What do you guys think? Maybe you can have more to say in these topics.
Okay, let's see.
I can say one thing
Okay,
to
yeah.
start off. I would say the weather is one of them. At least like, I mean, in the winter time, like if you don't enjoy winter sport, it's really nothing much to do.
Yes. Yes.
And like I don't know, I didn't think it's a problem because I used to live in like 24/7, 365 days of sunshine in Thailand. But then I went back to Thailand in December and it was like 30 degrees out, sunny on the beach, and we're like, why can't I have this in December here? It's like, yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, weather is one thing for sure, and another reason why people like really like to go to this tropical paradise,
Yeah.
right, in the winter time.
I think that's why we don't have a whole bunch of Thai people that came to Canada because it's relatively cold here. Whereas I know a lot of Thai people tend to go to Australia or like the US, like lots in California because it's warmer there.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about how Vancouver can feel like a lonely city, but yeah, and like I think to like thrive here, you kind of need a community or like a close friend group, and it just I'm not sure if like because I don't have a lot of experience like growing up in Thailand, if the problem also happens there, but it seems a lot harder to make friends here in Canada, like especially in Vancouver compared to like when I was growing up in Thailand. And I don't know if that's partly because we have like people from so many different ethnic backgrounds, and I noticed that sometimes like they like to stick in groups, right? So like people from Korea will have like a group of Korean friends. And when I first came to Canada, there weren't a lot of Thai people around.
I think that's the problem for Thai people.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of like cultural shock, or you need to kind of get yourself in an uncomfortable situation in the beginning just to find other people who are similar to you and like make connections. So it can be really challenging at first. And I also heard of stories of like people I know who came from Thailand and like experiencing something similar as well.
I live here and I've experienced something similar too. So, and I've heard that that's like a Vancouver kind of trait that it's very hard, I guess.
Like
and
people are cold, kind of.
yeah, like people are very polite, but then they might not be as warm and like actually wanting
Like surface
to
level, right?
connect and be friend. Whereas I think different parts of Canada are different. Like I remember going to Toronto and sometimes they actually were not as polite, and that was kind of shocking to me. But they're much more, I guess, easy to get to know and very willing to.
They're really like direct, open, straightforward.
Yeah, so I really think that one depends where you are. in Canada.
Yeah.
But yeah, how is that like in Thailand? Like,
I want to say it might be, and this is like touching on 2 points, like good thing to be a Thai in Thailand and bad thing to be a Thai in Vancouver. It's like I don't know, like, do you feel like you belong here, like you really here, like as a part of this society, or you still feel like an outsider sometimes? But for me, I feel like I thought that I'm part of this society and I'm always feel proud to be here, right? But like when I went back to Thailand, it's different feeling. Like I feel like this is still my country, my culture, my people. Like I can easily connect to anyone here, speak the same language, we share the same joke, share same cultural references, for example. And it just make it's the feeling that of like this is my place, this is my home. And I don't want to get too negative, but like it's like you be a first class citizen in Thailand, right? And I feel like somewhat you still like a second class citizen in Canada, even though I know like we are really good in like equality, inclusion, diversity here. And I think like this is probably the best you can get if you want to live abroad already, like Vancouver. But it still never feel like completely like home. I still feel like I need to like struggle, I need to prove myself, I need to, like you said, reach out and like find friends and whatnot. But it doesn't feel like this is my home. Like this whole place, city, country is like where it's like who I am and whatnot. I don't know. What do you feel that, or you feel more Canadian and you feel more foreign when you go to Thailand?
I have that similar feeling, maybe not as strong. And I always thought like my explanation for it is just that like my family are like and relatives are all in Thailand, and that's why like whenever I go back, I feel that sense of like homecoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like if I try to picture like if my family and relatives were all in Canada, I feel like I would then call Canada my home. Like even though I was born in Thailand and
So
everything.
it's more like your personal family, like where they are.
Yeah. Just because I spent now I think the majority of my life now in Vancouver, I do feel a strong connection with Vancouver as well. Like even when I was away in Thailand, like in December, and coming back to Vancouver, it felt like coming back to a familiar environment. Yeah, so
Actually, this is a very good point. So I'll add my opinion on this, and then I want to share another topic that's related. The first is that I guess my family lives in Canada as I was born here, and I definitely identify with being Canadian. When I go back to Thailand, as much as I love it, unfortunately, I feel like a bit of an outsider there because I speak with an accent, and no matter how good my Thai is or how hard I try, that is always pointed out, which is honestly kind of unfortunate to experience all the time. But what I really want to identify, which is actually probably one of the cons of moving to Canada or being like an immigrant family in Canada, is experiencing identity crisis. And that's something definitely have experienced before. It's just not knowing to which culture you belong, right? And trying to figure that out and then navigating these cultural differences, which can be very, very confusing, and like having different cultural values and sometimes being part of a society where other people might not really understand. So I think the identity crisis bit can definitely be a challenge to deal with.
Yeah, I think so. It really depends on like how long are you here, like how much, like what proportion of your life. Like maybe because I was born and raised in Thailand for like 23 years before I came here, so like I'm still have like a majority part of my life in Thailand. That's why I still feel more attached and feel more at home in Thailand. And you were like in the middle, right? You came here in your high school, and you were like 100% here. And
which is really funny looking back, because I know my family raised me like in a very Thai cultural kind of way with those kind of values and line of thinking. But when I would interact with my peers, like I'd encounter all sorts of things that I didn't understand that were difficult. Like, for example, going to a friend's house, and then like the parents would say, "Call me by my first name." And in Thailand, you never would do that, right? You have to be respectful. So even though they're asking me to call them by their first name, I could never do it because I was thinking I'd be disrespectful. Other different cultural things. So I was very confused actually for a long time. Am I a Thai person? Am I a Canadian person? Now I'm just a lot more confident in knowing that.
So what's your strategy now? Like what you have realized?
Yeah, I've just made peace with the fact that my family is from Thailand, but I was born here, so I'm Canadian. That's what I am. I'm Canadian, but I have like Thai cultural roots and background, and I've made a lot of peace with that. I'm very happy with
So do you feel like you end up mixing the two culture, or like you have to pick one? or you just like you act certain way when you in one culture and you act another way in another culture, or you just always the same person in no matter which culture you
I
hang
think
out
I'm
with?
the same person, but I think the wonderful part is now, instead of getting confused by all this stuff, I get to appreciate the parts about the different cultures, and I get to choose what I think serves me most or makes sense from each different cultures, and I get to understand and appreciate it, and I think that is really like mind opening.
Thank you. So let's switch to the last topic before we end the podcast. So, like the title of this podcast say, is life better in Vancouver, in Canada, or in Thailand, right? So yeah, I wanna go around and if you can choose, would you rather just live in Thailand or would you rather like just live in Canada, or like do you have other opinions on this?
Man, that's hard.
I personally am very happy living in Canada, maybe because I've lived here so long that I'm used to it. But my main reasons are that I like love how I guess clean and unpolluted it is compared to Thailand. Like I really do struggle sometimes with that when I go back to Thailand. I also am used to like less crowded spaces, so when I go back to Bangkok, I feel like wow, there's a lot of people and feel like the city's a little too big, which I've heard the opposite, where people come here from big cities and they're like, Vancouver is tiny and it's very boring. So, and then I mean, I still love Thailand and I always want to keep a connection with my culture there, but I'm happy to go back and visit. That's my.
So life is good here, but you still want to go back and visit Thailand, but not living there, more like visiting there.
Absolutely. Also, I think like in Thailand, I think the work culture is very different. I think like is it similar to other Asian cultures where you have to spend like almost all day working every day, like in Japan?
So I don't think so. I used to work in Thailand, and I think it's like just normal work hour. But I work in a big. Well, my first job I work in a pretty big like public company in Thailand. So yeah, I don't feel like I need to overwork and whatnot. It's pretty chill. And the second company I work in Thailand was an international company. So in a way, it's more like Western like setup. And yeah, people leave work at 5. We go for lunch together. Well, it's normal.
I think retail positions might be a bit different because I know malls there close a lot later than here. So like you might have to work longer hours. But I think here, if you work in retail, it's also challenging, but like in terms of like dealing with customers, right? So yeah, I think they have pros and cons. For me personally, I think it would be great to work in Canada just because of like the opportunities that we discussed. Like maybe like yeah, coming here for education and studies. But long term, I think it would be great to like retire in Thailand, just because of how accessible things are over there. But one downside is like I think Nina mentioned earlier is the pollution. So actually, yeah, I forgot to mention this, but like growing up in Thailand, I have pretty severe like allergies, like pumper. So I had to take medicine like once a day while being in Thailand. And coming here, like I could totally like get off of that medicine because like the air here is so clean. So that's the only thing that's like kind of like weighing me back from like wanting to stay in Thailand full time. But yeah, I would say like maybe like 6 out of 10 like staying in Thailand like
I just
long term.
thought of something. The con for Thailand.
The
What
what?
is it?
Yungat.
Oh,
Mosquito bites. That's the
not just yungat, like insects in
Yeah,
general. This is
Oh yeah.
lots of insects.
I actually don't mind the geckos. I think they're really cute.
Have you seen the big one though, like tukke?
Yeah, I think they're cute.
You should
but getting
not-
bitten by bugs, mosquitoes especially in Canada, because of the cold weather, like they still exist if you go camping or hiking, but you don't have that worry most of the time. Right in Thailand, you're all right. I don't know. I always get bitten, maybe because I'm like foreign kind of blood.
I think for me, like it really depends. I think I didn't ask an important question like if you can make the same amount of money, would you rather live in Canada or Thailand? But like for me, it's like yeah, if I can make the same amount of money, I still want to live in Thailand. I mean, sorry, in Canada. And like you said, there are like things that money cannot buy, right? Even though I know like if I can make the same amount of money here, but like live in Thailand, like I can have like a much more like luxurious life. But like I don't need that. Like I don't need like I don't know, living in a bigger apartment, living like right in the middle of downtown or like having vacation every other month. I feel like I value also like clean air. I also value like 4 seasons. I don't like having summer all year. I also value like for me personally, I like the people here, not just for the diversity, but I feel like people who make it to Canada, like especially immigrants, they're really like the thinker of the world. They're really like quality people, right? That they make it here. Like I love talking, sharing ideas with you guys, for example, right? And not saying like in Thailand I cannot find those people, but it's just harder to find like the international minded people who are well traveled, people who can really talk like big ideas and all that. And I feel like here I am surrounded with these people, and I feel like I'm learning something every day. But in Thailand, I feel like it's more like I'm just having fun every day, but I'm not learning as much. And that would be the reason. Like even if I make the same money, I would still choose to be here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that perspective.
Yeah. Go back to you guys. So if you make the same amount of money, would you still live here or Thailand?
Okay, I think for me personally, it's all about social connections. Like like where do I have like the most support, and like where do I have like the most community of people that I know and I can share life with. So it really depends in my case. Well, for me personally, it's definitely Vancouver. But yeah, I think for like podcast audience, like people who are thinking of coming to Canada to study or like to work, I think they will be giving that up, right? Because they are probably growing up in Thailand, and they have built some sort of community there already. So by coming to Canada, like you're coming to like a world with better opportunities, but you are also giving up some of that community that you've built. So there will be like definitely some struggle in the beginning. So like I would say the decision to come to Canada in the beginning shouldn't you shouldn't make the decision off of like, do I see myself coming here long term or not? I think it should just be like maybe like coming here as an experiment, and then after a few years of being in Canada, see if you can like find that community of support, and then from there decide if living in Canada long term is something for you or not. But yeah, it really
Love that.
It's like
depends.
Great advice.
interesting perspective. When I came here, I already made my mind. I want to live abroad, not even Canada, but living abroad long term. I would make that decision right away.
What, like, how were you sure? Because I'm on the same boat as Mackie in the sense that, like, because like in my life, the most important thing to me are the people that I spend my life with. And because I have already my strong connections, communities, friends, family here, I would probably choose to stay here. Whereas if it were the reverse case and I was in Thailand and I had all those things, it would also be similarly difficult for me to leave because of those things. So I'm so curious, and I love your sense of adventure and your determination, but what really got you into that mindset to think like, I know this is the right choice for me?
Well, there are a lot of factors for sure, but like I growing up in Thailand, I never felt like I belong there. It's like I always feel like an outsider in my own country in a way. It's funny, like I was just saying, like I feel like in Thailand,
Oh, okay.
but I don't know. I feel like maybe like I watch a lot of like Western movies, Hollywood movies when I was young, or whatnot. But I just always feel like I'm more aligned with like the Western thinking. I feel like when I listen to like a Western podcast or Western teacher or like intellectual or like Western thinker, I feel like I can resonate with that more than when I like listen to like Thai thinker or like more like Eastern philosophy.
Interesting.
So I knew myself that like I would be happier here because
Wow.
my thinking is aligned like with more like the Western civilization. But it also like my root is still in Thailand, and that's why I say like when I go to Thailand, I feel like I'm just I'm in my comfort zone. I'm just like having fun in my comfort zone. But like me personally, I value growth. I value learning, and that's why like when I'm here, I feel like my growth, my learning exponential. Like every day is never like someday that like I don't learn anything new. and that's why I like it here, and I know I would have a better time and enjoy my life here better. So
It's fantastic. Very inspirational.
cool. Well, thank you so much,
Thanks
Mina
for having
and
me.
Napon,
you. Yeah.
for this amazing podcast. I hope everyone watching this would learn something today. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe and comment like what other topic we should talk about next. Or if you have any suggestion on the name, please let me know as well. I haven't named this podcast yet. So yeah, thank you so much. And let's get party.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.